Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of MD's Levrone Report. Joining us as always is IFBB Hall of Famer, living legend, the Maryland muscle machine, all the way from Maryland, Kevin Levrone. What's up, man?
Thank you, Ron. Thank you, brother. Thank you, thank you, people, everybody for tuning in. Ron, when you contacted me about this idea of this show,
Yeah.
I was kind of like, it could go a lot of different angles with this one, but tell them what the topic is, Ron.
Okay, so basically it's, does a coach make or break an athlete? Because the number one story in the entire bodybuilding world for well over a week now, and this is almost insane to even entertain this thought, is Nick Walker, who the young guy who had an awesome season last year, won the New York Pro, won the Arnold Classic, took 5th place at his first Mr. Olympia. Supposedly he's leaving his coach, Matt Jansen. That's the guy who turned him pro and worked with him on all those pro wins. Then he made a video saying, no, we're back together. I'm going to work with him until the wheels fall off. And now there's still rumors that no, they're not working together. But it's crazy to me that this is a young guy who has so much potential in the sport. He's just getting started. And people are so concerned that if he doesn't have this one particular coach, that could be his ruin. That could be the end of him, as if he's never going to succeed ever again, which, we've talked about this before, because you came up in an era where there were no coaches. You were your own coach for every single one of your pro shows but one. Am I right on that? So
I had training partners,
but you didn't have a coach that you sent progress pictures to every day. And they said, this is how much we're going to do, this to your carbs, this to your drugs, this to your cardio. You didn't have anyone doing that for you. You handled all that stuff on your own, correct?
Yeah. I mean, I had a serious training partner, which I had on the show, Scott Rayner.
Yeah.
And, Scott and I, just like any training partner, will look at his partner and say, hey, man, let's train this, let's hit this, let's do this. But it's not a coach. Coaches actually just sit back, look at pictures, and then mentally convince you that you need to do what it is that they want you to do. They're not in the gym doing the work for you, so they have no idea how you feel. And I think a lot of athletes make the mistake of putting a coach's decision before their own decision, which means taking every single thing that another human being tells you that's not you, or doesn't even know really how you feel. All you can do is explain how you feel, but they're not taking this with you home and everything, and trusting in that human being. And it's kind of risky. Like I would think that that's kind of like, it's something like, why? For what reason? When you should be the athlete out there learning what it is that best works for you through trial and error. And then you won't have to worry about somebody leaving you, because you're ultimately the one that made all those decisions, and you're the one on stage that's going to have to make all those decisions, through your posing, through every single thing. Coaches don't go on stage with you. So it's two variables that I see here. Okay. Now, going back to the whole, let me be clear. All right. I'm not saying coaches aren't any good. I'm not saying that. I'm saying an athlete needs to know what works best for them. At the end of the day, they need to know every single detail about that. Then eventually they can branch off from a coach, and decide, hey, I've outgrown this person that I'm working with, and I want to, expand my own horizons and see what I can do, by myself. Maybe that's where Nick is. Maybe that's where he is. And if he is like to that point, rightfully so, it's his body. He can make his own decisions and do whatever he wants. And it's his business. So he can put whoever he wants around him and decide to, cut ties with someone. For me, I'm all about growth. I'm all about trying new things, that works, and not being so stagnant into the same, pocket pigeonhole of the way that things work. Now, the other flip side to that is, if he's turned pro with this guy,
Yeah.
From day one, they've been together. It's almost like that marriage to where, you've accomplished everything. You've gotten married, you went through the courtship, you got kids and everything, and now you want to separate yourself from that. I mean, it's going to be some trauma that he's going to go through. When I say trauma, I mean like, things that he's going to be unsure about. Doubts that may pop in his head. That coach that he's working with, I'm sure he probably talked to him mentally, say, "Hey, look, man, we got this." To keep Nick up. Now, I don't know what kind of personality Nick has. If he's the guy that needs pep talks or pats on the back or that support system around and say, "Hey, you know what? We got this. We can do this." Flip hand, me, I was an athlete to where I didn't need that. I didn't, just leave me alone. Let me go do what I got to do. I got this mentally inside. So depending on how he's designed, but it sounds like he came to this thing with a coach and it could affect him. We just have to wait and see the next time he steps on stage, right?
Yeah. So, I mean, that's the thing. It's very uncertain at this point. We're speaking on a Friday. This has been going on for over a week now. Nick has not come out again to clarify. So as far as we know, they're still working together. But if he were to go to another coach, there would be a little bit of a transition phase where this new coach would have to learn a little bit about his body, how it reacts to different types of foods, supplements, training, cardio, all that stuff. So they might not hit it out of the park their first prep together, even if he goes with someone like who do you think the best coaches in the world right now? Hani Rambod, Chris Aceto, George Farah.
Yeah, if I was having anybody coach me, it would be Chris Aceto. Definitely. I mean, Chris knows, he knows, he's seen the transitions of era. So he knows what we did. He knows what the younger generation is doing. He's that guy. He knows the approach. He knows when to push. He knows when to back off. Yeah, it's gonna be risky. I hope that he has enough time if he does decide to do something like this to get comfortable with it and see if it works. Unfortunately in our sport, you can't. There's no room for a trial and error because you got the Arnold coming up. Yeah, if he's doing that, and then Olympia's coming up. So there's no, you got to hit the target on the target. And if you do leave and go work with somebody else, you got to make sure that when you walk on stage, you look better than you did in your last competition.
Well, here's something. I don't know if I've ever asked you this exactly, but I know you had Dave Palumbo coached you for one show. You coached,
Dave did.
You coached yourself on every other pro show you did, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So how was the process different working with a coach versus when you had been doing it on your own all those other times?
Well, for me, when Dave came in, Dave kind of explored with some pharmaceuticals, things that he was educated about that I wasn't educated about. I was just doing basic things, and he knew what the competition was doing. That's where that advantage came in when I worked with him. I think it was 97, that he knew what everyone else was doing. So he was able to bring that knowledge and experience of working with others into the program that I had, and it actually helped. It helped.
So how did you look? What was your look? Were you heavier? Were you bigger at that show than you ever were?
I was bigger. I came on stage at 257. And I came in at 257. I was a thicker, fuller looking bodybuilder, but never once did I doubted anything that he had coached me on or his advice, because I trusted him. I trust him as his experience, you know what I mean? But I also had so much, I won a lot of shows, on my own. And I was just reaching out to say, hey, you know what, man, let me see what I can gain, because, we never know everything. There's always someone who can teach us more. Right. So the knowledge that I learned from him, I also learned that, that was a road that I didn't want to go down. for my next competitions and so on and so forth. I had an experience with that, the way that, him coaching me made me look, and then I also had the experience of the way that I was doing things, and I felt more comfortable with, with where I was, because where the direction where I was going, it was a little too edgy for me.
Mm.
It was a little too edgy for me, and I felt more comfortable being in the 240s competing.
Yeah.
And as an athlete, you have to find where that comfortable zone is for you. Now working with his coach, maybe those guys have such a comfortable zone. Maybe that guy knows Nick's body, so well, that it's going to be hard to duplicate that with someone else.
Yeah, that's really, I guess, what we're talking about, is because certain bodybuilders, they do stay with the same coach for basically their whole career, and they have great success with that coach. Ronnie Coleman, he only worked with Chad Nichols. He never worked with anybody else. Chad got him 8 Olympia titles, so clearly that was a very successful partnership. Flex Lewis worked with Neil Hill. Neil brought him to 7 Olympia 212 titles. Phil Heath only worked with Hani Rambod, again, 7 Mr. Olympia titles. It's hard to imagine those 3 guys working with anybody else, because in our minds, that's a partnership that we saw from day one all the way until they retired. So I wonder though, what if Phil Heath had worked with Chris Aceto instead of Hani Rambod or George Farah or something? Does that mean he never would have won an Olympia, or wouldn't have won 7? Maybe he would have won 2 or 3. Obviously we'll never know, but that's what we're I think that's the main concern that people have, is because Matt Jansen and Nick Walker have been a team from the very start. Before people heard of Nick Walker, Matt was already working with guys like the late Dallas McCarver. He worked with Nathan Dasha. So he had this reputation already building, but now it's hard to think about Nick Walker without thinking about Matt Jansen. I don't know. What do you think? Do you think another coach? I believe that all these top coaches are at a similar level of expertise. They all know the same things. I think it's just a matter of a personal relationship. Like you said, it is almost like a marriage. They communicate constantly. They're at these shows. They're at the highs, the lows of contest prep, winning, losing. It's
I mean, depending on how he's built, depending on how mentally strong he is, depending on how much information that he learned from his coach, it's going to determine the factor of moving forward, how he proceeds to move forward, if they do split up or if they don't split up. So that confidence level of you have to make sure, there was a time when I had a job and everything else, but I also learned what I could learn so that I could branch off and become my own entity and build my own company and every single thing else. So I don't know, it all depends. What happened? What happened with the trust issues, if there were any trust issues? What happened to cause this? I want to go on my own. What was it, Ron? Do you know?
Yeah. Supposedly the basis of all this, the rift, was that Matt works with other athletes, and he works with a guy named Brett Wilkin out of Colorado, who's only done 1 open show, but he almost beat Hunter Labrada last year. And he's doing the Arnold, and he'll probably qualify for the Olympia. So they're going to face each other. They're going to compete against each other, Nick and Brett, at some point, probably at the Olympia. Nick supposedly had asked Matt Jansen to not work with any other open pros other than himself. So he would have to drop Brett. I don't know if he's working with anyone else in the open, to just purely focus on him. Which is, that's where I'm torn too. If you hired a coach, Kevin, would you be upset? Say this is back in the day, like Ronnie was your biggest rival, right? Ronnie and Dorian. Well, Dorian didn't have a coach. So let's say you worked with Chad and Ronnie was working with Chad. Would you have ever said to Chad, I'm not really comfortable with you working with Ronnie Coleman, because he's trying to beat me and I want to beat him. So you can't help both. You can't help both of us. It's a conflict of interest. But guys like Hani have done that. Many coaches, Aceto has had several guys in the Olympia lineup. There's been a lot of coaches over the years that have. I mean, do you think a coach should be exclusive, in a division, or is it okay to have 2 guys trying to beat each other that the coach is working with both of them?
If I came up and it was me and my coach, and we both made names off of each other, and he was with me from day one and not anybody else.
Hmm.
And I was an amateur and we were together 4 or 5 years fighting this thing out or whatever. And I rise and we rise together. I would not want him to go and work with anybody else. No, I wouldn't.
No. Okay. Yeah. That's
And I
fair.
think
That's
that
fair.
is kind of like, it's like, why go like, why? I thought I was your guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I get
So
that. Yeah.
that's how I feel. And if he feels like that, then yeah, he's acting out of his emotions and how he feel. If it went down like that, now if this guy had other athletes, you know, alongside him the whole entire way, then it's a different story. Then no, you can't say don't work with this one or that one. But
Right.
if they grew up together and there was nobody else, and then all of a sudden he's making a name for himself, and we're together and we're supposed to go do this Arnold, and now you're jumping and bringing somebody else in the mix, I see where that's a conflict of interest.
Yeah. I mean, Matt was very well established before he started working with Nick, but he has been Nick's coach from day one. He turned Nick pro, and he's been with Nick's only done 3 Chicago pro, New York pro, 4 pro shows.
Yeah.
And I mean, he's got to try.
You gotta figure out how, you gotta think how Nick feels. He probably feels like, man, why you got to do that? We're so close. So I can understand how he feels. Then I can understand how the trainer would feel too, because he wants to, expand his horizon and be, bigger and everything. Yeah. Sometimes it's just best left alone and just keep it simple.
The other thing that I'm not even sure this is true, but the other half of the rumor, that part of it I believe, because Nick did make sort of a kind of like an apology on his Instagram, saying I was immature and I was thinking things, and he's basically reconsidered. Now he wants to keep working with Matt. That's the last we've officially heard anything from Nick. So as far as I know, everything, they're together. But the other issue that I'm not even sure is true was supposedly that Nick wanted to do the Arnold again, even though he just won it last October. Supposedly wanted to do it again, and Matt didn't want him to. Probably because Nick's been in prep for. Nick has not had much of a break, this kid. He turned pro in like September of 2020, did the Chicago Pro like 6 weeks later, did the New York Pro, did the Arnold Olympia. He hasn't had a really good break, an off-season break from prep for a year and a half, going on 2 years now. So I don't even know if that's true, but that goes back to what you're saying about, the athlete is the one that needs to make the decisions for himself. And if the coach, even if the coach advises you, this is what I would do, I don't want you doing that show, it's ultimately up to you as the athlete. No, I want to do that show.
To make the final decision, definitely, because you're the one that's going to walk off the stage with where they place you. Your regrets, or I should have did this and I didn't, I should have spoke up and I didn't. When Nick walks on the stage, it's just him by himself backstage and everything. So he has to be comfortable. It's his career. Let the man make the decisions on what he wants to do, who he wants around him, who he wants to keep around him. It's only going to make him feel that more secure when he walks on stage and does his posing routine and the judges are looking at him. They need to look at an athlete that's fully confident on every decision that they made. And believe me, if he walks on that stage and something's off, they're going to notice, man, something's just not right with him tonight. And it'll come through. I would love to have Nick on the show. Matter of fact, I've asked him several times to come on the show. We communicated through text back and forth. Nick, if you're listening, man, I don't know what happened. You dropped off the radar. Ron reached out to you. I reached out to you. The communication kind of got dropped. But we'd love to have you on the MD Levrone report and talk about it, man. I mean, I had you picked coming into the Arnold Classic, and you went in and you won that show. Yeah. So, man, let's come on. Let's talk about some bodybuilding. Talk about how you feel and get you motivated for your. People want to see you on Olympia stage again. So
I would love to have Nick on the Levrone report. Are you kidding me? Kidding me? Last thing I want to ask you about. We've talked about this many times before when we talk about the coaching aspect. Do bodybuilders need a coach? And this is the comeback that a lot of people have and say, look at top athletes in every other sport. They have a whole team of coaches to help them. Obviously, it's not the same. These are skilled sports like football and basketball, but like a Baltimore Ravens that's your nearest football team, right? How many different coaches are employed, all the way from strength coaches all the way to the head coach?
Probably 12, 13.
So like a dozen or more coaches. So every guy on that team works with a few different coaches on a regular basis, right?
Yeah,
So,
you got strength, you got everything. Yeah.
so why would we say, bodybuilders, pro bodybuilders shouldn't need a coach?
Because football's always been like that.
Mm,
I mean, you got 60 guys on the team or 70 guys on the team. Bodybuilding's just one-on-one.
okay.
I mean, yeah, you need somebody to. That's like saying, was Joe Weider Arnold Schwarzenegger's coach?
He claimed
He was his mentor. I think he was like his mentor. He was his.
Yeah,
he was, that father that said, "Hey, Arnold, we got this. You can do this." But ultimately, I think Arnold decided how he wanted to do his posing routine, what trunks he wanted to wear, how he wanted to train in the gym, what he wanted to eat, and how many hours of sleep he got. Nobody was there breathing down his throat, shutting him down from being Arnold Schwarzenegger. When you shut somebody down and you want this person to be controlled underneath everything that you want for them, you're smothering them and stopping them from being who they are and reaching their complete purpose. Maybe there's a lot more in Nick Walker's tank that we don't even know, because we really haven't seen Nick Walker on stage. We just see his physique that somebody else is making a choice for, but maybe there's something else in him that needs to flourish. And I think a lot of these athletes, they want coaches because they lack the knowledge. They don't want to go out and learn for themselves what carbs work better for them. Is it white rice or brown rice? What protein source is the best protein source for them? Is it, steak, fish, or eggs? Or eggs or chicken. What kind of, I love broccoli. It was like, you couldn't tell me I needed to eat some chicken and steak for protein to get ready for a show. No. So for me, I learned all this on my own, what worked best for me. I think coaches do come in, they have great advice. Don't get me wrong. Some people do need them because probably they lack confidence or whatever. I don't know. I'm not into this whole thing with the coach. You do need a guy to light, your family members looking over you saying, hey, you did this, whatever. But I think it all depends how much, if the coach is there teaching you and he wants to be that coach to teach you so that one day, he can support you and you making your own decisions, I think that's great. But if a coach is there because he just wants to control every single aspect because he has an ego problem, then I think that's a problem. And you do have some coaches that never walked on stage, that don't have the experience as these professional athletes, but yet they're putting these guys in a spell and controlling every single thing they do. Not only the guys, but the girls also, and some of it can lead to disaster.
Yeah.
We've seen that.
We had those disasters last year, and we've come out and said, a lot of people have come out and said, you can't just blindly do whatever a coach tells you to do. And you have to take some accountability and personal, because it's your body, it's your health.
Yeah.
We've had people die from diuretics and different things. Even last year we had it just begs the question, can you put your trust 100% in somebody and your full faith when it's your life on the line? If they're saying do this,
no.
You're looking at a diuretic protocol. This is an example for a lot of women we're looking at. It looked insane, like 10 days on aldactone and this and that, and Lasix at the end. And any sane person would look at that and say, hold on a minute. This doesn't look right. I'm really not comfortable with this. And you're a great coach. You've got X amount of pro wins to your credit. You've turned all these people pro, but this looks, I'm not cool with this. The athlete ultimately, they have to be responsible because they're the ones who are going to live or die or have serious health problems.
Absolutely.
Not the coach.
That's right, Ron. I totally agree. These people put too much trust. You cannot put your life in somebody else's hands. So be smart about that. Be smart about that. Make your own decisions. Trust your decisions and know why you're doing something. When you walk out on stage, you'll perform at another whole level if you just trust your decisions and believe in who you are. You got this. Just learn from that coach, and then you decide what you want to do from what he tells you. That's it.
Sounds good. What a great way to end it. And of course, again, Nick Walker, you're always welcome. We would love to have you on the show. Please give me a text or give Kevin a text. We would absolutely love to have you on. Kevin, thanks for taking the time. I knew this was a good topic, and you had a lot of cool stuff to say about it. So thank you so much.
It's my pleasure, Ron. Thank you very much, man. And have a great weekend, my friend.
Guys, if you like the video, hit the thumbs up thing, hit the little bell for notifications. Yeah, you got to do all that. We need views.
That's right.
We need all that good stuff.
That's right, guys. All right.
There it goes. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching MD's Levrone Report with Kevin Levrone. We'll see you next time.
Peace.